Okay, so Jasmine Crockett did the math. Texas Republicans drew her out of District 30, cracked Tarrant County so black voting power drops under 50, and carved new white-leaning seats, even though the state's growth came from communities of color. If voters are supposed to pick the reps, why are the reps picking the voters? Let's watch the full clip and then I'll give you my thoughts at the end.
But to your point before, that the U.S. Constitution, if my memory serves correctly, you as members of Congress just have to be in the state in which you serve on election day.
Yep. Yeah, you just have to be a resident of the state.
Right.
That is
on
correct.
Election day.
Correct.
And so I guess as part of your decision-making process, having that conversation with your current constituents, if they would mind you being out of the district.
Correct.
Okay. You also talked about Latino districts, and I know this was part of the 2021 lawsuit, if I'm not mistaken, on the maps.
Not on my part.
Not on your part,
correct.
right, but in the other districts.
Yes.
And so Republicans have said this time around, look, we're creating 4 Latino majority districts. One of them would be the new 33, which you are considering. Your thoughts?
They're playing games, right? They also said that they created 2 new African American seats.
One of them would be 30.
Correct. They're claiming that there were none. That is not the position that they have held in court. So the benefit of being a litigant in the current litigation is that, number one, they have acknowledged that these seats are already protected. So any lack of protection has been because they've tried to make something unprotected. For instance, in Congressional District 30, the citizen voting age population of African Americans prior to the 2021 redistricting was over 50%. When you're typically creating a new single majority minority district, they are looking to see if you can concisely put together a district that is 50% or better to have the best protection that a district can have, all right? So when my district was initially created, that's where it was. They're the ones that took it down below 50 because it still naturally was populating that way. They took it down below 50% because they decided that they wanted to crack minorities in Tarrant County, which is how 30 ended up going into Tarrant County in the first place. 30 was wholly contained in Dallas County, but they wanted to make sure that some of those minorities that were growing too fast, specifically in the Grand Prairie, Mansfield area, they decided why not break them up. They broke them up into 3s. They took 1/3, put them into my district, 1/3 put them into Jay Elzey's district, and 1/3 they put into, I believe, Burgess district at the time. And so with that, they diluted their voices. When you look at my district now, they now have decided, even though it still enjoyed the protection, because it's about whether or not African Americans will still have the opportunity to choose their representation. My district still functioned that way, where the African American electorate was still able to choose their representation. So you can fall below 50 if you've already enjoyed the protection. And that's where we were, and that's why they weren't stressed about it, because they knew it would still be protected. And that was the state's position in this litigation for the last 4 years.
In 2021.
Yeah. In 2021. Right. Now, as it relates to Mark Vesey's district, it was considered more of a coalition district. But to be perfectly honest, I always looked at it as a Latino opportunity district anyway, because the numbers were so high. In fact, if you go back to when that district was created, Domingo Garcia was running in that race. And every time it is that Mark Vesey is challenged, he is challenged by a Latino. It's not like when you look at my primary, where it's basically all African Americans that are running. It is typically Latinos that come after Mark Vesey. And so it has been an opportunity district. Now, whether or not Latinos are actually outvoting their counterparts is a question, and whether or not Latinos are just deciding that Mark Vesey is the one. We know that the same can be said for 35, where Lloyd Doggett used to represent, going from Austin to San Antonio. Right. Lloyd Doggett is Caucasian, but it was always a Latino opportunity district, and they kept electing Lloyd Doggett. So it's not about who gets elected, it's about who gets to choose who is elected. And that doesn't necessarily always comport with that minority that gets to do the selecting.
Now, in the 33rd district, Vesey's new district, under this map, or maybe yours, we'll see,
It's more Latino.
Right. It's heavy Latino, because I went back and I looked at the numbers.
They took a lot of Oak Cliff and Pleasant Grove.
Voting age, almost 292,000 Latinos, 91,000 blacks, 37,000 Asians, 150, almost 6,000 whites in that district. So let me go back and just ask you, because there's obviously been a lot of back and forth between Republicans and Democrats of who gerrymanders more.
Yeah.
And so the Republicans have said, we're just catching up to the other states, to California, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, wherever. And when I talked with Republican State Representative Katrina Pearson, when I asked her about this, she said, Democrats have to get comfortable with the fact that minorities are trending more in Republicans' favor. We saw that in 2024. You know, of the 16 counties along the border, 13 of them went and voted for Trump. So what do you say to that?
I mean, I don't, you know, people choose their politics based on whatever reasons they choose them, right? I'm a Democrat because I don't believe in a white supremacy agenda, and I believe that the Republicans, for the most part, are pushing a white supremacy agenda when you are doing anti-civil rights movements, when you are rolling back protections that we've always had around, number one, minorities accessing the ballot box. So here's the deal. If it is that minorities, whether they're Black, Asian, or Hispanic, if they are going for Republicans, then why is it that you continue to try to dilute their voices and don't want them to be heard? Why is it that when we look at those that have been allowed to elect their representation under this new map, you specifically are taking out Mark Vesey, who's been elected by, we won't even say which minority, but we know it wasn't white people. I'm gonna just say that. When you look at Al Green, who this new map takes out, we won't even say who elected him, but it wasn't white people. So the reality is that it is about who gets to do the electing, but it is curious to me that we've got 4 Black elected folk on the federal level in this state, yet somehow specifically at least 2 of them were targeted to be kicked out, like in some way. And then we know that the 18th, they decided not to necessarily mess with it, which was a surprise. I mean, they obviously messed with it. Let me not say it that way. They decided that they would still afford it the protection that they said it was due in the current litigation. But they also said that Congressional District 9, Al Green's seat, was protected in this current litigation. So my deal is this, like I've explained to the representative, that this isn't about who votes for who. It is about making sure in the state that has more African Americans than any other state, that they are not left with their voices only amounting to 1/5 the strength of their Caucasian counterparts. It is about a state in which 39% of the state is Anglo, and the highest ethnic group is actually Latinos, that Anglos not go from getting 2 additional seats on the backs of people of color when the state grew in the census by 95% to now 4 new Anglo seats. So they don't want to talk about the fact that they continue to take Anglo representation up when in the last decade we only added 180,000 Anglos. Each congressional district is 766,000 people. So you tell me how that math works. You decided that you wanted the seats because people moved to this state and the people were overwhelmingly of color, yet you continue to take their representation and their voices away. Now, if you believe that they're going to vote for Republicans, fine, but give them their seats is all I'm asking as it relates to the Constitution and the Voting Rights Act.
So,
I mean, honestly, the audacity is just, it's really breathtaking. The core of this, the thing that just gets me, is how they can stand there with a straight face and say they're creating new minority districts. It's a complete and total lie. It's not just a political spin. It's like the exact opposite of what they're actually doing. They're telling you they're building you a house while they're actively bulldozing the one you already live in. It's such a cynical, manipulative play, and they're counting on people, I guess, not paying close enough attention to the details. And Jasmine Crockett just lays out the receipts perfectly, right? The population of Texas grows, earns 2 new congressional seats, and that growth is, 95% people of color? So you'd think, logically, you'd see at least 2 new districts where minority communities have a real say. But no. Instead, the number of white majority districts actually goes up. I mean, how does that even work? How is that possible? unless you are deliberately, surgically, and with racial intent drawing maps to make sure that doesn't happen. They literally took her own district, which was a historic, protected black district, over 50% black voters, and they just cracked it. They sliced it up and stretched it into another county to dilute that power. That's the game they're playing, isn't it? It's not about communities of interest or keeping neighborhoods together. It's a raw power grab, breaking up black and brown communities that are growing too fast, as she put it, and scattering their votes across multiple districts so they can never form a majority anywhere. It's voter suppression by like 1,000 cuts. And then you get that quote from Katrina Pearson, the Republican, saying, oh, Democrats just have to get comfortable with minorities trending our way. That right there is maybe the most infuriating piece of gaslighting in this whole thing. As Crockett points out, if you genuinely believe that Black and Latino voters were flocking to your party, you would be doing the exact opposite. You'd be drawing more compact minority districts, confident that you could go in there and win their votes fair and square. The fact that you're so terrified of their voting power that you have to dilute it tells us everything we need to know. Your actions, they completely betray your words completely. Then, of course, comes the classic, the go-to deflection. Well, Democrats in California and New York gerrymander too. It's such a tired, dishonest argument. Look, is partisan gerrymandering a problem? Yeah, absolutely. And it should be fixed everywhere. Ideally with independent commissions that both parties seem to have a problem with when they're in power. For some reason, but what's happening in Texas, what the courts have already called out, is racial gerrymandering. That is a direct violation of the Voting Rights Act. It's a civil rights issue. They're trying to equate a political food fight with a hate crime, and it's a disgusting false equivalency. And you have to think about the real world harm this does. This isn't some abstract political science debate, When you deny a community the ability to elect their own representative, you are denying them a voice in everything. You're denying them a say on funding for their schools, on healthcare for their families, on environmental protections for their neighborhoods. You are systematically disenfranchising them and ensuring that the government is, by design, unaccountable to them. It is a modern form of segregation, plain and simple. What's maybe the scariest part is the absolute contempt for the rule of law. A federal court, a panel of judges, looked at these maps and said point blank, these were enacted with a racially discriminatory purpose. They said it was illegal, and the Texas GOP's response was basically, a shrug. They just don't care. They believe that their political power in the moment is more important than the Constitution, more important than the Voting Rights Act, more important than decades of civil rights progress. That's not politics. That's creeping authoritarianism. Ultimately, this whole thing just rips the mask off. The modern Republican Party's vision isn't about winning a battle of ideas. It's about ensuring a shrinking white minority can hold onto power by rigging the system and silencing a growing majority of Americans. The goal is to make sure your vote doesn't matter as much as theirs. The progressive vision, the Democratic vision, is the opposite. It's that in a true democracy, every citizen's voice should be heard equally. And that's a future you have to fight for, because they are doing everything they can to prevent it from ever happening. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. While you're down there, hit the like button and subscribe. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.